Salvete omnes. This is exercise E of chapter 30. We are to read the following English sentences aloud, parse them, and then turn them into Latin. So it's like exercise D, only now we're working backwards. We read the English sentence aloud. We can find the syntax of the English words based upon the word order, how they function in the sentence. From the syntax, we derive the case, and then from there we just decline and conjugate. So we remained in camp for 4 hours, for we had not heard the signal. So if you are having trouble determining what is the subject of this sentence, ask yourself, well, what is the verb? And the verb is remained. Now, if you're thinking, what about heard? Well, if you look, we actually have two sort of sentences here that have emerged into one. One is a main clause of this sentence. The other is a subordinate clause. And hopefully you can pick out the main clause by now. The main clause is going to be this one. We remained in camp for 4 hours. For we had not heard the signal is a subordinate clause. We call this a causal clause because it's explaining. It's an explanation. The main clause can stand on its own. That's why it's sometimes called an independent clause. The causal clause cannot stand on its own. It is dependent. That's why it's sometimes called a dependent clause or a subordinate clause, because it's dependent upon this main clause for its existence. If we took out the main clause, we remained in camp for 4 hours. We left this alone, scratched this out, and we had not heard the signal. And that was our only sentence. That would actually not be a sentence. For we had not heard the signal. That's actually not a sentence. The for there, that makes it weird. That's a conjunction. It's linking this clause to the main clause. If we get rid of the dependent clause, for we had not heard the signal, cross it out, and just keep the main clause, we remained in camp for 4 hours, that's fine. That makes sense on its own by itself. It can stand on its own. So the main verb is remained. The verb in the dependent clause is heard. So we'll start with remained. Who did the remaining? We did. So we are the subject. So to remain is maneo, manere, mansi, mansus. We are first person plural. We remained would be perfect tense. First person plural, perfect tense. It's active voice and it's indicative mood because we actively did the remaining. Didn't happen to us. We did the remaining. So something like mansimus. In camp, that's where we remained. Ablative of location. In plus the ablative shows location, where something occurred, where the action happened, where the party at. The Latin word for camp is castra, aurum, always neuter, always plural. So in plus castris, mansimus in castris. For 4 hours. This sentence wants to highlight that there's for, and for, and for, and they're kind of all different. We have preposition for, which works with this noun, this prepositional phrase, for 4 hours. We have numeral for, which is spelled differently, and then we have conjunction for. So Latin doesn't have a word for, the preposition for in this case. So this preposition for is showing duration of time. This is how long for 4 hours that the action occurred. How long did we remain in the camp? For 4 hours, the duration of 4 hours. So for is the indeclinable adjective numeral quatuor, and then the noun hour is horae feminine. It is duration of time, so we want the accusative of horae feminine, and the accusative plural because it's hours, not hour. It's got an S on it. So quatuor horas. Like I said, there is no preposition in Latin that corresponds to the preposition for right here to show duration of time. Instead, you show duration of time by putting this word in the accusative case. Now watch yourself because this conjunction for is going to be different. This is nam, back in nam. Conjunction for nam. For we had not heard the signal. Nam introduces a causal clause. Why something happened. Why did we remain in camp for 4 hours? For we had not heard the signal, because we had not heard the signal. For we had not heard the signal. So not known, it's an adverb, so it will negate the verb known. To hear is audio, audire, audivi, auditus. For we had not heard it would be first person plural pluperfect active indicative. So we want the perfect stem audiv and the first person plural pluperfect ending eramus. So audiv eramus. And we had not heard these signals. Signum, e, neuter, sign, signal, military standard. And we want the accusative case because it's the direct object of the verb heard, because we didn't hear it. Awesome. Now it's just a declining conjugating game. Our final sentence is something like, in castris quatuor horas mansimus, nam signum non audiveramus. Optime, secunda, sententia secunda. We have come a mile, and yet we have not found a river. Oh darn. We have come a mile, so we, the subject is we, so the main verb is come. Venio, venire, veni, ventus, we did it. First person plural, perfect active indicative, so venimus. And to what extent did we do the action? We went the extent, the space of a mile. A mile in Latin equals 1,000 paces. So the indeclinable adjective mille, and the noun passus us masculine. So mille passus, macron over the u. So venimus mille passus. And yet, we want et. Yet is tamen, T-A-M-E-N, tamen, first of his name. It's post-positive, so another word should come before the tamen. So we should have et, another word, and then tamen. I'm going to go ahead and choose the river. The river. Now, et, and then we'll have another word, tamen. Let's wait and put the river there later. Known is going to negate the verb. How about et non tamen? That could also work. It doesn't really matter what word you put before the tamen, but kind of make it emphatic. Et non tamen, and then to find is invenio, invenire, inveni, inventus. We have not done this. First person plural, perfect active indicative, invenimus, macron over the e, invenimus. Et non tamen invenimus, and then river, flumen, fluminus, neuter, river. Because it's neuter, the accusative and the nominative singular will be the same, flumen. So we could say something like, mille passus venimus, et flumen tamen non invenimus. Or mille passus venimus, et non tamen flumen invenimus. Tertia, for many years she waited, yet the letters from him did not come. For many years. So this is time duration preposition for many years. So we're going to want this in the accusative and no preposition. So the adjective is multus aum to agree with annus e masculine. Years is plural. So we want the plural. We want the accusative. Accusative plural of annus e masculine is annos. And multus aum needs to also be accusative plural masculine, so multos. So multos annos, remember no preposition. The reason we know it's for duration is because this is in the accusative. She waited. She waited. Expecto, expectare, expectave, expectatus. Now, you could do third person singular perfect active indicative. She waited. It is an ed verb, but she did do this for many years. She waited around for many years. She was waiting for many years. She kept on waiting for many years. I'm actually going to put this verb in the imperfect tense because the imperfect shows a repeated or continuous action in the past. I mean, guys, it went on for many years. So expectabat. Multos annos expectabat. She was waiting for many years. For many years she waited. Yet the letters from him did not come. Here we have yet again, like up here, we have tamen, post-positive. So we should probably put an emphatic word first. So epistulae feminine, epistle. Now, the letters here are the subject, because the verb here is come. What did not come? The letters did not. So we want the nominative plural feminine subject, epistulae. Epistulae tamen, from him. We want the ab plus the ablative of separation. From him. We really don't know about like his location, where he is. I mean, he could be far away. That would be the ablative of ille, illa, illud. It's masculine too. It's a him. Of course, it could be right here. Probably not. It's probably not hic, hi, cock right here. I'm just going to go ahead and use the neutral is, ea, id from him. So ab, ab, ao. Did not come. Known. Another negative. We've had 1, 2, 3 negatives. Known, and then venia, venire, weni, ventus, third person plural, because the letters they did not come. Third person plural, perfect, active indicative. We could also say they were not coming, because it was a continuous process. So non veniebant. Epistulae tamen, abeo non veniebant. Multos expectabat, or we could say something like annos expectabat multos. For many years she waited. Epistulae tamen abeo non veniebant. How sad. Quarta, sententia quarta. We carried the grain and water to the horses many miles across the plains. Good for you. Do you want a cookie? So we carried. So the main verb in this sentence is carried. Who's doing the carrying? We did. First person plural. We are the subject. So we carried. Porta, portare, portavi, portatus, portavimus. First person plural, perfect active indicative. Portavimus. What did we carry? We carried the direct object, grain, and joined by a conjunction et, we also have water. You could also use que. If you want to use que for the conjunction and, make sure it is attached to the second thing. So it would be grain, water, que. Or you could just say grain et water. Both grain and water will be the accusative direct object of the verb carried. So we have grain, frumentum e neuter, and water, aqua I feminine. We want frumentum et aquam, or frumentum aquamque. I guess we could also say frumentum atque aquam. Atque being another conjunction, more emphatic one. Let's just go with et or que. To the horses, we carried. So we carried these direct objects to somewhere, towards somewhere, motion towards. This required movement towards the horses. So not the dative, but this is odd. Odd plus the accusative showing motion, movement. Equus e masculine, that's a horse. We want horses, accusative, equos, ad equos. And how far did we do the action? How far did we carry the direct object? Many miles, many thousands of paces. Multus agreeing with milia, milium, and then the partitive genitive passoum. So multa milia passoum. And where? Whither? Trans means across, plus the accusative of campus e masculine, and that is going to be campos. Campos. Trans campos. So the sentence could be something like frumentum aquamque ad equos multa milia passuum trans campos portavimus. You could also say frumentum et aquam. Quinta. 10,000 of the enemy were captured. Well, they fought badly because there was no food in that camp. Oh, they had rambly Tommers. So 10,000 of the enemy were captured. 10 is the indeclinable adjective numeral decem. So we have not just 1,000, a singular thousand, but more than 1,000. We have 10,000s of the enemy. Milia, milium, neuter, plural. And it looks like this is going to be the subject of our verb. So the verb is going to be passive voice. The 10,000 didn't do the capturing, they were captured. The verb happened to them. So they are the subject here, and the verb is passive voice. Decem milia of the enemy. Now you can use de or ax plus the ablative for the separation idea because this is a numeral. You could use the partitive genitive, but it doesn't seem to be as popular. I'm going to go ahead and use ax plus the ablative of hostis, hostis masculine, enemy. The enemy is plural. If it's an enemy, that's singular, hostis. But if it's the enemy, definite article, the enemy, that is plural, hostes. We want the partitive genitive hostium. So something like decem milia ex hostibus. Put the x on x before hostibus because you put the x on ax and the b on aab when the next word starts with a vowel or h, because h was nearly silent even in classical Latin. Ex hostibus. Decem milia ex hostibus. Or captured. To capture is capio, capere, capi, captus. So we want the third person plural, perfect, passive, indicative. They were captured. Remember, like in exercise C, there was that sentence where it was the duo milia captivorum inventa sunt. It was sententia octava. It was the 8th one, where the verb agreed with the duo milia, the 2,000s of the captives. It agreed with the 2,000s and not the captives. Same idea here. 10,000 of the enemy were captured. 10,000s were captured. So decem milia ex hostibus capta sunt. Capta sunt. You want the plural neuter. Capta sunt. This is the main clause. Like in prima, we have the main clause, and then we have a causal clause, an explanatory clause explaining why the main clause happened. Why did we remain in camp for 4 hours? Because we didn't hear the signal. Why did 10,000 of the enemy get captured? Because they fought badly. And then furthermore, why did they fight badly? Because there was no food in their camp. They had rumbly tummies and they couldn't fight well. Conjunction for is nam. So nam, they fought, from pugno, pugnare, pugnavi, pugnatus, third person plural, perfect active indicative, pugnaverunt, they fought badly. Badly being an adverb describes how they fought, describes the verb. So we want the adverb form of malus aum, and that is male. They fought male. Nam male pugnaverunt. Okay, and why was that? Because quod plus the indicative, quod, there was no food, quod erat. All right, no food in their camp. Now this is I think we've seen this before, where we have seen enough of something, satis plus the partitive genitive. If you have enough food, you have enough of it, enough of food. Satis plus the genitive of food, kibi, kibusi masculine. If you have no food, the Romans would think you have nothing of food. You have nothing, nihil, of food, the partitive genitive, kibi. So no food is nihil, kibi. Quod erat nihil, kibi. And where was this no food, this nihil, kibi? It was in plus the ablative, in the camp. Whose camp? The camp of them. So if you wanted to include the there, you could say eorum, but you don't really need to. We know it's their camp. In plus the ablative of location, casra, orum, always neuter, always plural, in casris. Quod erat nihil cibi in casris. Altogether, quinta could sound something like decem milia ex hostibus capta sunt, nam male pugnaverunt, quod erat nihil cibi in castris. Sexta. They are building a large camp in the territory of the friendly Gauls. Well, then goes the friendly. So they are building. Building is the main verb. Who's doing it? They are. Third person plural. They're doing it right now in the present time, present tense. Active voice. They're actively doing it. Indicative mood. Munio, munire, munivi, munitus. So muniunt. Muniunt. So they are building, what are they building? They're building a camp that is large. Large being an adjective modifying the noun camp. Magnus Camp is casra orum, always neuter, always plural. We want the direct object because it's accusative. Direct object of the verb building. So casra. Magnus to agree with the accusative plural neuter direct object. Magna. So muniunt, magna, casra. Where are they building this thing? In plus the ablative. In finis masculine. Territory is finis in the plural. So in finibus. Of the friendly Gauls. Of the friendly Gauls. So friendly is an adjective modifying the noun Gauls. Of the Gauls. The Gauls are possessing the territory. It's the territory of the Gauls. It's the Gauls, S' territory. So we want the genitive, plural masculine of Gallus so Gallorum, and then inimicus I'm sorry, not unfriendly. They are friendly. They're totally amicus So amicus amicorum Gallorum. They are building a large camp in the territory of the friendly Gauls. Something like casra magna infinibus Gallorum amicorum muniunt. Septima, sententia septima. The attacks of our infantry were hindered by the enemy's boldness. So, what's our verb? Were hindered. What was hindered? The attacks. The attacks are the subject of the sentence. Attacks, impetus, masculine. So nominative plural masculine, there's more than one. The noun has an S, so impetus with a macron over the U in the US, impetus. Of our infantry, they are our infantry's attacks. So our in adjective noster, nostra, nostrum, modifying the noun infantry. Infantry is pedes, peditus, masculine. So they are our infantry's attacks. The attacks of our infantry, we want the genitive of possession. Genitive plural masculine is peditum. And this also must be genitive plural masculine, nostrorum. Nostrorum peditum impetus. They were hindered. What was hindered? Why, the attacks belonging to our infantry. The attacks. So, impedio, impedire, impedivi, impeditus. Third person plural, because they were hindered. The attacks were. It's got to be masculine, because impetus is masculine and plural. So, impediti. And then we want the helping verb to be the present tense of sum esse furi futurus in the third person plural, sunt. So, impediti sunt. So altogether, something like, not altogether, up till now, we have something like nostrorum peditum impetus impediti sunt. Man, that just sounds nice. And by what? By what were the attacks of our infantry hindered? By what thing, what instrument, or what means, or what manner? By the enemy's boldness. So by means of the boldness of the enemy. We have enemies. Remember, it's the enemy. This is going to be plural. If it were by an enemy's boldness, that would be a singular hostis. Here we have plural hostis, hostis masculine. So hostium, genitive plural hostium. This is possessive. Boldness is audacia I feminine. We want the ablative of means. By means of the boldness of the enemy. So audacia, there is no preposition in front of an ablative of means. Hostium audacia. So the sentence, septima, all together, could be something like, Nostrorum peditum impetus impediti sunt, hostium audacia. Octawa. I saw 3,000 men who had come from a neighboring city. So I saw, main verb is saw. We have a main clause here, I saw 3,000 men. And then we have a subordinate clause, a relative clause, who had come from a neighboring city. Once again, if we crossed out the main clause, I saw 3,000 men, and we just had who had come from a neighboring city, not as a question, but just as a sentence, who had come from a neighboring city, it wouldn't work by itself. It depends upon this main clause. Whereas if we get rid of who had come from a neighboring city and just had I saw 3,000 men, that main clause, that sentence works just fine. So main verb is saw, I did it, first person singular, perfect active indicative of video, videre, vidi, visus. Julius Caesar, veni, vidi, vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. So vidi, vidi. What did I see? I saw 3,000 of men. 3,000 men. Remember, you have more than 1,000. You have not just one, but three. Tres tria, it's a numeral adjective that's always plural, modifies milia, milium, always neuter, always plural. So we want tria, the neuter form, tria, milia, and then we want the partitive genitive of vir, viri, masculine. 3,000 of men, and I saw them. So tria, milia, virorum, vidi. And who are they? Well, they had come from a neighboring city. Relative pronoun who. The antecedent is going to be the men who had come from the neighboring city. The men who had come. So qui, nominative plural and masculine. It's got to be plural and masculine because the antecedent are the men. And then qui, who, because it's the subject of the verb had come inside the clause. Qui, venia, venire, veni, ventus, qui venerant, third person plural, pluperfect active indicative, from a neighboring city. So ablative of separation with ab, plus this is an adjective neighboring, finitimus a and city is urbs, orbis feminine. Ab, urbs, orbis, feminine, orbe, ab, orbe. Finitimus give it ablative singular feminine ending, finitima, with a macron over the final a, finitima. So altogether, the sentence is something like, tria milia virorum vidi, qui ab urbe finitima venerant. Nona, sententia nona. In my farmhouse there are the horns of many animals which I found in the woods. Yeah, sure, you just found those, just lying around the woods. Of course you did. Yeah, not creepy or weird at all. In my farmhouse, where are these things, these horns? In, plus the ablative of location, shows where things are. In, my is an adjective modifying the noun farmhouse. Farmhouse is villa I feminine. So we want the ablative singular feminine villa, macron over the final a, and my is meus we want mea, another macron over the final a. In mea villa, in villa mea. There are. Now this is existential sum, where we are announcing the existence of some subject. We usually put this one first, so I'm going to go ahead and say sunt in mea villa. You don't have to. You can say in mea villa sunt. I'm just going to say sunt in mea villa because I like it. It's third person plural present active indicative of sum esse furi futurus. It announces the existence of the subject. Because if you ask, what are there? The answer is the horns. The horns are there. The subject of the verb are the horns. Horns, cornus, it's cornu us neuter. Remember, it's that fourth declension neuter, cornu us neuter. So horns, we want the nominative plural neuter cornua. Cornua, sunt cornua, there are horns. Where are they? In mea villa. Sunt in mea villa cornua, of many animals. The horns belong to many animals. Many animals' horns. So animals is going to be possessive, genitive case. More than one, so plural. I want the genitive plural of animal, animalis, neuter. It's an I stem, animalium, animalium. It's a neuter third declension. Its nominative ends in al, animal, so animalium. Many, multisaum, much plural many. It's also got to be genitive plural neuter, like animalium, so multorum, multorum animalium. So cornua, multorum animalium, which I found in the woods. Now, did you find the horns or the animals in the woods? Both are kind of creepy. You found the horns. So the antecedent of the relative pronoun which, the noun horns. So here we have a relative clause, which I found in the woods. Man, that just sounds great in any sentence, doesn't it? So the antecedent, if horns is nominative plural neuter, which must be plural neuter. In the clause, which I found in the woods, the verb is found. I am the subject of that verb, found, and the direct object is which. So we want the accusative plural neuter relative pronoun here, which is quae. I found, invenio, invenire, inveni, inventus. So inveni, inveni. First person singular, perfect active indicative, inveni. And where did I find these things? In plus the ablative of location, silva, I, feminine, plural, in silvis. Or actually, it could be singular woods if it were forests with an S, plural. I'll just say singular, in silva. Macron over the final A, in silva. Let's practice our Macron skills. So nona, sunt in mea villa, cornua multorum animalium, quae in silva inveni. And decima, sententia decima. What did you hear when you arrived at the villa of the consul? Nothing good. So what did you hear? So this is going to be an interrogative pronoun, quis quid, and we want the unsexed neuter quid because it's what. If it were who did you hear, it's kind of weird. That would be sexed masculine or feminine quis. But here we have quid, neuter. Quid did you hear? So that we want the accusative here, what, because the verb is here and you did it, because you are the subject of that verb, you hear. Second person singular, it's perfect, it's active, and it's indicative of audio, audire, audivi, auditus. So audivisti. Quid audivisti? What did you hear? Quid audivisti? What did you hear? When? When? We want ubi. When you arrived, you did it. Pervenia, pervenire, perveni, perventus. Second person singular. Perfect active indicative. Pervenisti. Ubi pervenisti. At. Remember, pervenio takes either ad or in plus the accusative motion towards. Ad villam. From villa, I feminine. Villa. Or in villam. In villam. And the villa belongs to the consul. So, of the consul, consul is going to be genitive. Consul, consulis, masculine, genitive. So I'm going to say ad consulis villa. I'm going to nestle and snuggle that genitive consulis right between that preposition and that noun. That's kind of weird, Mr. Freeze. So decima. Quid audivisti ubi ad consulis villam pervenisti? What did you hear when you arrived at the villa of the consul? Optime, very well done. That wraps it up for exercise E, and that wraps it up for the exercises in chapter 30.